Good morning. It's very nice to be here. My name is Vanessa Mathews. I'm originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Grew up in Atlanta. Been in Charlotte for 12 years. I've owned my business for 12 years. My professional background is in Homeland Security and emergency management. So I've spent the majority of my career helping to build crisis management, business continuity, resiliency programs for federal agencies, aircraft manufacturing companies, and big retail companies, so that when disasters or disruptions happen, they know how to handle it.
What's something that you had to learn the hard way from dealing with uncertainty with your own business?
Yeah. So my first few years of business, I was in corporate and I still had my corporate paycheck. So which is very different than when you don't.
Yeah.
So you always had that to fall back on, right? And then the 4 years after that is where I decided to leave corporate and I became my own investor. And I lost that corporate brand that I borrowed. And then I had to convince people that the brand that I was creating was just as valuable and just as high quality as the brand that I borrowed for those 12 years or for that 15 plus year career that I had. And so some of the challenges that I encountered was once I left corporate, I went from a 6-figure salary to food stamps and could barely survive, and had to have my parents help me to pay my rent, especially in the city of Charlotte. And I had never had that experience before. I had always been able to figure out, and when I left my mom's house after college, I never had to go back. So that was my first time having to go back and having to ask. Then the second component came in from a business standpoint. After 4 years, probably 2 years of leaving corporate, I got my first contracts. So I was in the black within 2 years and I was fine and I was navigating until I wasn't. And in 2019, before the pandemic, my crisis was the year that I got married to my amazing husband was also the same year that we went 365 days with no revenue.
Ooh.
So if you can imagine, every time you call, every time you text, every time you follow up, it's a no. It's a no. And for the first time in my life, I had the thought of completing suicide. I had the thought of no hope, no faith, no confidence. My fiance then, husband now, had to work Uber, Lyft, round the clock, so I had the support. And my depression was so low because I had never been in a place where I wasn't winning.
Right.
And it broke me. And so for some reason, by the grace of God, I decided to not quit. Like for some reason, I just didn't have the peace to quit, but I really, really wanted to. And so I had to learn how to navigate that. So what I learned is, especially for the work that I do, it's hard to show up for other leaders and for the clients that we serve, which we work with transportation companies, we work with airports, we work with the city of Charlotte, we work with tourism companies, we work with sports teams. It's hard to show up and talk to them about crisis if you've never navigated your own crisis.
Talk a little bit about what resiliency means to a small business. Like, what does that mean to them?
So I think in general, resilience is your ability to absorb the impact and bounce back. Something's gonna happen that you're not expecting, that you can't predict, but how do you absorb that impact and bounce back? In my business, what we help our clients with are your 4 losses. Typically, depending on your business structure, there's 4 things that you cannot live without. Number 1 is your people. You gotta have a great culture with a great team and great people, and they're the ones who are going to execute. And for a small business owner, sometimes you are the people, and then sometimes it's you plus 1, right? Secondly, it's your technology. It's the physical systems, your servers, your applications. Likely for a small business owner, it's the technology that you do not own or control, your Wi-Fi, that impacts how you run your business, right? Thirdly, it's the infrastructure. None of us control the infrastructure. It's all the city. Your power, which is Duke Energy, your water, your sewer, your trash. If the city stops running and they can't deliver on water, everybody in this room is impacted until we're not, right? And then it's your third party, your partners, your vendors, your suppliers. So we have a vendor that's in the room right now. If they were not here, that would be an impact to my business. And so depending on if your suppliers or your vendors are in the US or they're external, then that's an impact to your business. For some of you who have physical locations, or you're doing food or beverages, well, where are you sourcing those things from? Those are your third parties. So we kind of teach companies that when you lose those 4 things, how long does it take for that impact to hit your business before it starts to hurt? And that's where we start to help them build the contingency plan so that they can be more prepared.
Yeah, that's true. And you're talking about Charlotte. Charlotte's one of the fastest growing cities. I've heard a statistic, I think it was like 156 people move every day to Charlotte or something like that. That is staggering when you think about it. So, as one of the fastest growing cities, that brings a lot of rapid growth, but it also brings opportunity, innovation, and challenges. So what do you think are challenges that might be unique to Charlotte, something to look out for, be aware of?
Yeah, so there's quite a few challenges that are happening, and I think I'll tie it in with what's unique to Charlotte. One is there's been a shift in America from an economics perspective, and it's just expensive. I mean, that's just the reality. The cost of talent 2 years ago has increased dramatically. The cost of our expenses has increased dramatically. And from a geopolitical standpoint and what's happening in the world, all of that has a ripple effect, right? So that's a huge problem. Secondly, I would say federal policy changes have changed who's winning, who's losing, and who's at the table and who's not. And that has also had a ripple effect. We don't provide the services of what has been cut from a federal perspective, but there has been a shift in how people do business and who they do business with, right? And that has been experienced, and that is my lived reality.
Yeah, and one of the things that recently happened, Mecklenburg County passed that 1-cent sales tax for mobility and transportation. So the city's going to see a lot of projects coming up in the next 30 years related to transportation and mobility. We have some postcards in the back. You can learn about our Skill to Build campaign, because we really want to make sure that our small businesses and our workforce are prepared for these opportunities that are coming in. So if that interests you, just let us know. Vanessa, you had the opportunity to work with the city during the pandemic. Do you want to tell a little bit about that program that we ran there and how that inspired what we're doing next?
Yeah. So in 2020, there was a pandemic, in case you weren't aware. And it had a really big impact on businesses, and through federal policy and federal budgets, we were able to do what the city called resilient re-up, and what we kind of came to the table and developed a program called the Road to Resilience. And it was designed by a small business owner who has the credentials and risk and crisis management, along with my team, to provide a pathway for small businesses to really understand what does crisis management, resilience, and contingency planning, what does that mean for me at the size and scale of my business? We do a lot of work with big businesses, but it doesn't mean that we can't scale it down to what makes sense and what's in scope and the capacity for a small business owner. So there's 4 e-learning modules that we've built. We have 4 live sessions, and it's now turned into a 4-week course that we've been able to build, so that no matter if it's a pandemic, if it's a transportation build and they're building right outside of your front door for the next 18 months and it impacts how your customers walk through your door, if it's rising rent costs, whatever the challenge or the disruption is, or if you've been in business and now you're like, how do I succession plan and find my next CEO? We built this program for you. And it's important because I don't like going to small business events where corporate people try to tell me how to run my business. Because if you can't tell me, if you don't know how to tell people how to get you paid every day, you have no idea what it's like to be a business owner. Like, I have to ask 7 questions so my client starts to understand, oh, yeah. So when do services start? When the check clears. That's when it starts. And I can't move forward until that happens, because we're just built very, very differently. So that program is in place, and it's something that we'll be launching later.
Yeah. So stay tuned. We're going to do a 2.0 of that program coming out probably late summer, fall. And we're going to have a couple cohorts of businesses to be able to go through that program. So keep an eye out for that. Oh, and I did put my business cards here in case you need them. Talk to me a little bit about, when crisis hits, what are 1 to 2 things that business owners should do, or moves that they should make to stabilize? Because, if they're waiting till crisis hits, it might be too late. Yeah.
So there's a few things. One is identify. Am I in a, so I think that there's fire and there's smoke. Which one am I in? And just make sure that we're solving the right problem. As a risk manager, I like to get to the root cause, and that's really big for me. Secondly is evaluate what your impact is. I had somebody phished my email account.
Oh gosh.
And I was traveling out of town, and I got a call from my attorney and said, you need to shut down this, and this, and we need to do this, and this. And I had no idea the scope of the impact, but it went to our clients, et cetera. And I'm a crisis management company. So evaluate what your impact is. So that way you're not over or under engineering how you respond to it. Number 3, once you understand those things, put your plan together. And your plan could be, I'm going to call a team meeting and we're going to talk about this for the next 2 hours. And we're going to meet every week or every day until this issue is resolved. Focus on the mission is number 4. We don't have a lot of capacity or time. And so we have something that we're going through in our company right now. And the question I asked my team yesterday is, what comes off the table? What can we not commit to? And the response is, focus on the mission and our purpose. Our purpose is to help leaders to protect their legacy, and it is to help organizations to uncover their blind spots. Our mission is all about relationships and partnerships. That's what gets us in the door. It's what helps us to continue to do the work that we do with the clients that we serve. And so if we're not following the mission that we have as a company, we can't do it, especially when we're in a time of crisis where we are distracted or there are other things that we have. I would also say communicate. You have to communicate internally and externally. This is my 2nd time going on maternity leave. And what I have learned is you have to communicate your plan to the team. You have to say it 7 times for them to hear it the first time. Yes. And to your clients, you have to lay out the process. So we've had challenges with just getting the right people in the right seats and everybody doing the right things over the past 12 years. But one thing I've learned recently is your clients like going to their favorite restaurant, and your business is their favorite restaurant. When you walk into your favorite restaurant, the same person who serves you probably doesn't serve you every time. But as long as the quality is good, the food is great, and you get the value, you don't care. Just give me what I want, right? And that's how your customers feel. I don't really care who I have to work with, as long as you can still execute on what you said that you can do. In a crisis, have hope and faith, because that's what you have to fall back on. You can quit, so give yourself permission. But if you really don't want to, then don't. And lastly, you just rinse and repeat that process until you get over it.
Yeah, that's get over it. What does a resilient business actually look like in practice?
So from my perspective, whether you're big or small, number 1, you know your risks. Even if it's not documented and you don't have the infrastructure that we provide for our customers, a risk register, and they're not documented, you know your risks. So, hey, I know that my director of administration is 60 years old, and in the next 10 years, they're going to want to retire. That's a risk. I know that I have products coming from X, Y, or Z, and I don't know if we're in war or not. So that's a risk, right? Know your risks, whatever they are, how small or how big. Number 2, have a plan. The plan might not be on paper. It would help if it is. Right. But have a plan for what are the top 5 risks that could really put my business out and that could disrupt me, and just kind of understand what that looks like. It's really important to have your relationships before you need them. There's another business owner. There's probably 2 or 3 that I know when I'm in a time of crisis, I can pick up the phone and call them and talk to them about operational, sales, people issues that only they would understand. And I made one of those 3 calls yesterday, and one of them wasn't available, but the fact that I could reach her via text and just to get an immediate response was super helpful. And so build your relationships before you need them, not just with other small business owners, but also the people that you need to help you run your business. Whoever's doing your financing, your loans, just the things that you depend on as a business owner, you want to make sure that you maintain those. And then lastly, protect your people. And if you are a team of one, protect you. You can't do anything without your team. And I believe that the best small businesses and the best big businesses are the ones that put their people first.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're talking about a plan, can you tell us a little bit about what a small business resiliency plan looks like? Is it a written document? I mean, how do they get started creating something like that?
Yeah, so outside of identify your risks, I think the second step is I focus on a framework. So I would start with people, your infrastructure, as I mentioned, your technology, and third-party vendors and suppliers. Depending on your business, it might be something different for you. Start with those 4 things and then start asking yourself, okay, well, if I were to lose this, what would the impact be? How soon would I feel it? And what would I do to continue my operation? So for example, I was on a panel last week with the Alliance, and we had the chance to interview Krispy Kreme and the Clorox company. And one of those businesses had a cyber breach, and they had to manually run the Clorox company for 5 months with no technology.
Oh my gosh.
It was all manual. So my business is remote. So can you imagine me going 5 months with no email, no access to my data and the systems or the platforms that we use to deliver our services, no access to my customer relationship management tool, no access to my financial or my accounting software? How would you continue to run your operation? So put yourself in that mode, and hopefully it's never that extreme for you. But that's kind of the level of thinking. Is what I like about what we do is we get to ask those types of questions that most of our clients are not thinking about, and they get that reaction in the room. And that helps us to kind of help them to guide, well, here's how we can help you fix this, and here's how we can help you to put this on paper. So I would say for each of those 4 scenarios, start to put together 5 to 7 bullet points. What would I do? And go in depth. I think you probably heard before, like, ask why 5 times. Ask how 5 times. How would this happen? Or how would I respond if this were to happen? And that can potentially, and because, so your ultimate goal is when you go through a crisis or a disruption, your customer should never feel it. So I don't know what they were going through and when, but I still had Clorox. Right?
Yeah.
So whatever business you have, your job is to make sure they still get what they need and they experience no disruption. So how can you do that while also managing whatever risk that you are experiencing?
That's good. Yeah. We want to allow time for you guys to ask questions. So I'm just going to ask you one more question. And is if you could give one piece of advice to small business owners trying to prepare for uncertainty, what would it be?
I'll make it a little bit broader.
Okay.
So what I've kind of anchored my team on is it takes what it takes. It takes what it takes. I'm not a University of Alabama fan, but Nick Saban, that is a quote that I have heard the former coach say, and I have anchored in on that. Our vision is to be the best in class in helping companies prepare, respond, and recover from disruption, period. And we will be the best in class. And it takes what it takes. You cannot have a shortcut. You can't skip steps. You are not exempt. You cannot have mediocrity. You have to have the right people. And sometimes you keep going through the same thing. And I'm sitting here looking at God like, Lord, now this is about the 17th time I had to go through this now. And I'm tired. But it takes what it takes. And so I've instilled that into my team. Quality matters. The way you show up matters. Your consistency matters. And your ability to deliver and to do what you say that you can do, it matters. And doing a good job is the floor of the expectation. You don't get repeat business. So when people say, oh, well, just do a good job and you'll get repeat business, that's a lie. I walk on the floor. That's the expectation. You should do a good job. But getting into the process and the system to communicate to your clients and to your buyers and depending on how you sell. We are B2B and we sell to enterprise accounts. So my typical customer is a chief operating officer, a chief risk officer, or a CFO. And there's 1,000 other people who are designed to keep me away from those 3 people. But I have to get into a process and a system so that I'm in their budget every single year, every fiscal year, and I figure out a way to be able to get in and stay in. But it takes what it takes. So depending on what you want to be, I think that is where you have to be clear. I want to build a business that's bigger than me, that is best in class. But not everybody does, and that's okay. But either way, it takes what it takes.